Hey, kids, welcome to episode 42 of the Creative Train podcast. This one's called Be a Kid. What makes art so much fun? What makes creativity so deeply satisfying? And what makes it so torturous at the same time? You know, that tortured artist thing? When you feel so fervently motivated and to do something, but somehow completely paralyzed by the specter of self-doubt that you can only half start something, and now you find yourself surrounded by half-done things to the point where you can't even recall why you started them or what your vision was of the final product. You know that feeling? Well, you're not alone. Let's talk about that. All aboard? Simply put, art is fun. Imagining new things to make and do, assembling your tools and materials, and seeing your vision starting to take form is exhilarating. From concept to the first brush stroke, or key press, or scissor cut, or note played or ingredients selected, to the final product being displayed, photographed, tasted, or even heard, or if you're lucky, maybe even purchased. We as artists and creators are continually living in many worlds. That of the technician, the mystic, the dreamer, the business operator, but most importantly, that of a child. A child's enthusiasm, curiosity, and determination are second only to that of a puppy who is focused on destroying his new toy. Most children have had these things educated out of them, though. And I use the word educated as a lot of genuinely creative minds have been muted or minimized by the processes of learning school things in those mandated manners of what they call the education system. Ask any artist you know, and they will likely agree that school just wasn't their thing. Some minds work very well in that kind of system, and others simply cannot engage. And if we put these things like arts-based studies aside, most of your artsy friends will probably agree about what we're talking about here. And I assume that because you found this podcast, you are an artsy as well, and there's really nothing I need to explain any further beyond that. The untethered, innocent, and curious mind of a child who believes that they can do whatever they are imagining themselves to do is one of the most joyful things an adult can learn to re-engage with. The term inner child is too often associated with trauma or traumas experienced, things which have had a long-lasting and unfortunately negative impact on our lives. And somehow we as adults end up thinking that the inner child is just some strange, damaged part of our psyche and needs to be treated in therapy or buried under the expectations of what we are told to do as adults. But there is also the fun-loving, buoyant, carefree, and curious child in us who sadly ends up being only vaguely recalled from our grown-up perspective. And we leave that part of us standing alone, watching in the driveway as our newly minted grown-up self drives into the sunset of our youth, yet simultaneously into the dawn of our adulthood. That child is waving goodbye, suddenly faced with the stark realization that the person driving off may never come back. And what happens now? That child can wait in some kind of emotional stasis, looking around and considering what to do, wondering why they were abandoned because, well, they didn't do anything wrong, but suddenly they're alone in a vacuum of sorts. And eventually they take their place and recede into the background noise and clamor of becoming an adult. In my career as a private studio music teacher, I can honestly say that 90% of my adult students are returning to music after letting it fall by the wayside as they got older. That young rock star that once lived inside them was faced with new priorities, life changes, and despite those changes being absolutely necessary at that time in their current state of their career and education and personal evolution, they let the fun things slip away as they became more serious about life. But as I get to know these folks better, I learn how they need to have their lessons constructed. Some like a more formal approach, and others not so much. But there is one thing that I always say to every single one of them, and that is that they have my permission to play. Because not everything needs to be organized, prioritized, and documented for them in their at-home practice. I give them the information, like giving them a list of chords that will certainly go together well, and I can help guide them through the first steps in landing those chords, and hearing the music start to happen will always celebrate that. But I always tell them to have the confidence to follow their ear if they feel moved by what they're doing. In other words, I encourage them to experiment with their own arrangements of those chords. Hum along or sing along with the sounds, move your body to the rhythm or whatever, but go ahead and be a kid, is what I always say. If you can't find a way to make practice fun, or at least enjoyable, it just feels like another burden. And the chances of approaching your practice time with an open and willing mindset is pretty much zero, right? You know it. So go ahead and play. Revel in the seeming randomness of things that fit together in a pleasing way. Snap your Legos together in new and interesting ways. Make a car out of those blocks and then put wings on it. Or make a fish and then put wheels on it. Create a fusion dish made of seemingly disparate ingredients, or write a sad song using major chords. In short, play. The joy of spontaneous creation, making something unexpected given your ingredients or materials, is the most sure thing to keep you learning, evolving, and growing as an artist. You have my permission to make a mess. You have my permission to laugh and cry while doing it. You have my permission to heal and hurt at the same time. You have my permission to F every single step of the process up and still want to keep going. Do it. Be a kid. The cost of the materials is insignificant in the view of giddy, silly joy of creation. Do it. Be a kid again. There's your pep talk. Now go get to work. And as I do at this point of every podcast, I want to leave you with some encouraging words. Even though some of the topics we've dealt with in the past have been kind of like, dealing with nasty people, we're not talking about nasty people here. We're talking about you. You as a creator, you as an artist, you who has something to contribute to the world, to bring beauty to the world. And it is not just something that you look at as like self-care time. It's something that you do to bring joy and levity and beauty into a world which sometimes seems to lack those things. That's your job. You're an artist. Go do your thing.